Look, when I paid for this studio, you promised me 30 frames per second and a full-size screen. This is not workable. You need to get me the rest of the room you promised me. I'm trying to record the Horror Words podcast here. We
Oh,
need the space.
John, let's play our favorite game where I mentioned something about one of them and you see which one it is, except I didn't remember to read their fun facts, so you've got to play the game and ask me.
Okay. But I don't know what their fun facts are. So I'm going to ask something really generic, which is
Ooh.
which of these guests do you think has the creepier backstory?
Bum, bum, bum.
I'm going to go with Kevin, but I know things that I'm not allowed to disclose, so there might be a little bit of cheat in my saying that. So let's play that a little bit. When you're not writing, when you're not compositing covers, what do you do, Skylar?
I spend time with my family. I have a 3-year-old. He just turned 3
That is
this
the
year.
creepier backstory. Okay, you win.
Yes, he's the light of my life. I absolutely love spending time with him. He's a phenomenal kid. Other than that, I work full time at a local high school here, and I also go to school over full time.
What are you taking?
I am studying to be a teacher, an English teacher.
Oh, very cool.
Very cool.
I've never used that language, but I hear it's very interesting and some people care about it a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Editors, people like that, nobody we ever interact with.
Right.
So, Kevin, what do you do when you're not designing book covers?
Oh, I'm not sure I actually have any time. They actually let me sleep. But during the 12 to 14 hours that I'm not designing book covers, I have 5 kids and I do a lot of running around getting people to work, school, and wherever they need to get to. And then on weekends, my daughter and I belong to a pirate group and we do basically stage sword fighting.
Okay. That's like a book
very
cover that
cool.
never, ever ends. It's like a book cover that's like 55 years long.
Something like that.
Okay. Tell us about the pirate fights.
Yes.
Oh, it's a group we ran into at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, and they do Klingon opera things, and they do pirates, and they do a bunch of things like that. We've done pirates with them at Renaissance Fair I guess it was back in the spring. We're getting ready for the next one here, and we've joined the sword fighting group, and we get together, and you have basic movements for learning how to do choreographed sword fighting, and try and put on a fun show for people to watch and surprise them by having a 9-year-old child attack you and kill you.
That sounds fascinating. I've had 2 9-year-old children try to attack me and kill me, but at different times because they're about 3 years apart. So
Indeed.
yeah,
Very long attack.
one of them's going to be 28 in a couple of in like a month and a half. The other one's going
I've
to be
got one of those. Yes.
the other one is 30. And they're both trying to kill me still, but now they're using different things like sarcasm and judgment and things like that. But it is what it is, and we love them. So
Indeed.
We keep them alive.
Mine are a touch older, 40 almost and 44 already. So I started early and I am old. I think both those things.
I've got 5 between the ages of 9 and 28. So
yeah.
But you spaced it out. So that's a smart thing.
Yeah, it's spaced out. I just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's more information than we needed, Kevin.
Is there anything more horror related than children, though? Come on.
Well, to be fair, if we're going to judge it based on that, we had Jason on who has 7 kids, and we had Cliff on who has 7 kids.
Yes.
And I think Cliff wins because it's 7 kids with the same partner.
Traditionally, isn't the 7th child a vampire?
It depends on the family.
Yeah. But so we've covered that part of the backstory. But let's get back to John's question. What's the spookiest thing in your backstory, Skylar?
So the spookiest thing in my backstory actually comes from my grandma. She actually survived a serial killer back in the 70s.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay, that's a tough. Wow, that's a high bar to jump.
Yes, they actually helped catch and convict the serial killer.
very, very cool. What about you, Kevin? What do you got with that as an opener?
I collected radiation samples around Chernobyl in 1986, a month after it exploded.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay. Wow,
I don't know if I can top that one.
this is a serious competition going on here. I don't know. I think we're coming
People
down
who
to
live
a
strange
Skylar.
lives.
I've been dead. Does that count?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It wasn't permanent. I got better. My younger one and I share that in common. I died at the age of 4. My younger one died at the age of not quite 1. We're both back. The
Bonus
best though,
time.
the best though was I told that story one time to somebody and they said 8. And I said 8? They said every one of my heart operations I was medically killed on the table and brought back. I was like, I didn't know it's a contest, but you win. Wasn't going to compete with 8. I'm not trying for 7 more, much less 8 more to beat him. But it gets interesting that way.
Hmm.
So Chernobyl and serial killers, and we're on the nonfiction part of the podcast at the moment.
This is true.
This
Yes.
is getting good. So as we were setting up, John asked you about that poster back there. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Skylar?
So Kevin actually designed my book cover, and this is my first book that I ever wrote, which is The Exorcist of I-15. My mom actually made it for me whenever I first published my book. She was like, I want to do something for you. And I was like, I'd love a poster. So that is now her thing for me whenever I publish a book, is to make me a poster.
That's wonderful.
Tell me you're doing that. I'll send you a higher resolution version for it.
Look at that. Podcast that comes with benefits like that. That's exciting. So, Kevin, talking about your book covers, what's the hardest project you've ever had like that?
There are lots of monster ones that come up that are very difficult to do because a lot of authors pick like creature feature of the month and they pick some really obscure deep undersea water creature that like there are limited photos if any to, and somehow I'm supposed to be making it attacking people walking down a street, and that's just like, geez, okay. Those are hard.
Yes, I've never done that to you. Not even the 3 times I've done that to you.
Your covers were actually a lot of fun. I liked your whole set.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you owe me one. But I won't mention that here because I'm not going to unfairly use this podcast as leverage to get what I want. I wouldn't do that. Speaking of, by the way,
You're not supposed to say the quiet part loud.
yes, the cover you did for the second Kleptogenesis, the one that Ian Herrick did, that I get to say I helped as opposed to I wrote, really, really good. It's such a clean image. It's so simply expressive. It really works.
I like that one. That was a fun one too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really liked your whatever was Endless Hunger series, or whichever ones went with the giant squid on the one, the shark, and the third one that has all the creatures at once with the dinosaur and everything.
Yep.
It just keeps building on each other every particular cover that comes out. Those are fun.
Well, the next set that I'm going to do like that is the Old Wood Gods, and we're going to have a whole different kind of look at that. That's going to be a big thing. I've been
That should be
planning that
fun.
one for a long time, and I laid the seeds of it in the 3rd book, which is going to come out soon. So we're having fun with that. Oh, wait, we're talking about books. I think that means we should let Skylar read. Skylar, you want to read?
Sure. Do you want me to read from my newest release or The Exorcist?
I want you to do whatever would make you happy and whatever
Okay.
would make the listeners happy.
But I would like to hear the Exorcist one.
Okay. Let me grab it off the shelf here. Okay. I'm going to start with chapter 1. Chapter 1. It was a quiet morning in Shelby, Montana. Joanna had stopped for her daily coffee at her favorite place, Lucky Joe's. She gripped the cup firmly and took a deep breath of the rich aroma. Ah, nothing like a good coffee to start the day, she said to herself. Little did she know her life was about to change forever. As she walked down the street, she greeted everyone she passed. Good morning, Larry. Morning, Sheriff, Larry responded. She kept walking back to her patrol car. Morning, Olivia. How are you this morning? Joanna asked little Olivia. Fine, Sheriff. How is you? Olivia replied. I'm good, sweetheart. Thank you for asking. Have a great day, Joanna said, walking away. Sheriff Dawson, you got your ears on? Carl, the dispatcher, asked Joanna over the radio. Yeah, Carl. What's up? Joanna replied while getting into her car. You need to get down to Summer Lake Road, about 2 miles off the pavement, down the dirt road. Carl replied with a catch in his voice. Carl, you want to key me in on what I'm about to walk up on? Joanna replied, nervous about what this call could be. Sheriff, it's a boy. Get there quick, Carl said, choking back tears. Joanna had an idea of what this call could be about, but didn't know for sure. She put her car in drive, flipped the lights and sirens on, and took off for the pasture. While she was driving, she thought back to her time in Billings, Montana. Joanna grew up in Billings, and she had always dreamed about being a police officer since she was a little girl. As soon as she turned 21, she joined the police academy and graduated top of her class. She told everyone told her that she was not strong enough to make it as a police officer. Hearing this made Joanna work harder. After graduation, her friends had taken her out to a local bar to celebrate. It was a small, quiet bar that was owned by some of their friends. A tall man stood at the bar and made eye contact with Joanna, but she quickly looked away. After a few drinks, she had finally gotten the courage to go say hi to him. Hi, she said shyly. Well, hi there. What's your name, cutie? The stranger said. He had obviously had a few drinks. Joanna, you? She replied. Mikey, he replied. Well, that has to be a nickname, she replied with a chuckle. It is. The guys at the firehouse gave it to me. It's better than Big Mike. But my real name is Michael, he replied with a smile. Oh, so you're a firefighter, she said flirtatiously. Yep, a year now. I just finished my last shift as a cadet. What about you? He replied joyfully. I just graduated from the police academy earlier today, she replied with a huge smile on her face. As Joanna thought about that evening, she turned the final corner to the dirt road. She was trying to remember happier times, as she often did back in Billings, when she got called to crime scenes, trying to block out the way that Carl's voice had cracked over the radio. She pulled up, got out of her car, and walked hastily to the scene. Mike stepped in her way. Baby, look at me. It's not him. It's not Jake. Mike was the chief at the firehouse 24 in Shelby. Wait, what? Joanna said while trying to look around Mike's shoulder. She finally realized what Mike had just said. Oh, thank God. But Mike, who is it then? Sorry, expectation. She said, looking up at her husband with relief. Jake was their 14-year-old son. It's Holden, sweetheart. When Michael spoke, it was short, sweet, and to the point. Joanna dropped her head in her hands and began to cry. Mike, who would hurt that sweet boy? Sweetheart, Holden is dead, Mike said solemnly. Joanna began to cry harder. Mike wrapped her up in his arms, trying to console her. She accepted it and buried her head in his chest. Her crying began to slow when she picked her head up, wiping her eyes. Hey, there's my big, strong girl. We have to be strong for Holden, Mike said with a slight smile. Joanna slightly smiled back at him. Yeah, honey, you're right. She walked to the back of her car, sniffling. She opened one of the compartments in the rear and grabbed a pair of latex crime scene gloves. As she walked to the scene, she thought to herself, I moved away from Billings not to have to deal with dead kid cases. She felt herself tearing up again. She took a deep breath, composing herself. Lifting the tape, she ducked under it, saying, Has CSU been called, Deputy Blake? Yes, about 40 minutes ago, Sheriff. Good. She walked over to Holden's body, making sure not to contaminate the scene, and knelt. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm going to catch whoever did this to you. That's a promise. She stood up, looking over his body, and saw a note sticking out of the pocket of his shirt. She knew not to touch anything until the crime scene unit was able to get there and process the scene. As she further examined Holden's body, she noticed there were no holes in his clothes. She began to wonder how all the blood got there. As time went on, she discovered drag marks from the road to where Holden was now. She walked over to Mike, once again, lifting the tape and ducking under it. "Hey, did any of your guys move Holden?" she asked. "No, sweetie. The only people to touch Holden were the paramedics. They checked for a pulse and said he was cold. There was nothing that they could do." Joanna nodded and proceeded to walk over to the cowboys who called it in. "Morning, gentlemen. Did any of you move or the boy's body or touch him when you all found him?" "No, ma'am. We saw the boy and all the blood and we called 911 right away," the head cowboy answered. "Thank you. Okay. Please make sure we can find you all if we have any more questions," Joanna told the group of cowboys as they stood beside their horses. "Yes, ma'am," they all replied in unison. Joanna walked back to the scene as she ducked under the tape again and took out her phone and began taking pictures of the drag marks to make sure there was documentation of it in case they got messed up. After taking the pictures, she walked back over to Holden. She began noticing there was more things odd with this crime scene. She noticed he was very well groomed and his arms were crossed over his chest like he was in a casket. Was the killer ashamed of what he had done? Finally, the crime scene unit showed up. Joanna walked over to the tape, waiting for them to walk over. She lifted the tape for them, saying, "Hey there, I'm Sheriff Joanna Dawson. How goes it? I'm Alex, and this is my assistant, Mia." "Shame we're meeting like this for the first time under these circumstances," Mia replied. "Yes, such a shame. Holden is only 1 year older than my son. They were friends, and he sat at my dinner table plenty of times," Joanna replied, her voice breaking. Mia grabbed her shoulder and said, "We'll find this SOB." Joanna nodded. "I did want to let you know I observed drag marks from the road to where the boy is now. I've already spoken to the firefighters and the cowboys who called it in and asked if they had moved him, and they all said no. I also took pictures for evidence just in case they got messed up with all the foot traffic." "Well, you sure know your way around a crime scene," Alex replied, shocked. "Unfortunately, yes. I was a detective in Billings for 4 years and a street cop for 6. They all moved towards Holden's body. Joanna was curious as to where all the blood came from. How was Holden missing all this blood? There has to be more than 3 gallons here. He was never reported missing. No surprise there. His parents are always strung out. But I don't see any wounds on him. Maybe his wounds are on his back and I just can't see them." After me and Alex finished taking pictures of the scene, they walked over to Holden's body. Using tweezers, Alex pulled a piece of paper that was sticking out of the pocket of his jeans. He opened it and put it into a clear evidence bag. Then the medical examiner's van finally pulled up on the road and came to a stop 10 feet from the crime scene tape. "Did you have to take your sweet-ass time, Tom?" Joanna said sarcastically to Tom. "Well, Joanna, I don't move as fast as I used to," Tom said with a chuckle. Tom had been the medical examiner in Shelby for the last 40 years. He had always had the habit of trying to make these hard situations a little less hurtful and sickening. "Alrighty, boys, where's the poor soul?" he asked one of the firefighters who was still at the scene. They looked over in the direction of Holden's body. Tom walked over with the assistance of his cane. Once he got to Holden, he knelt down next to the boy, opened his bag, and took out his liver thermometer. He poked it into the corpse's stomach and pushed it down into the liver. 90.4 degrees. I'd say he's been deceased about 6 hours, he said, looking up at Joanna. "I think it's time to show Holden some respect and get him out of this field. Don't you think, Tom?" Joanna asked. "Ah, yes. Let's get Holden to his new home for now," Tom replied. He unrolled the black canvas body bag onto the stretcher and looked at 2 firefighters and asked them to help him put Holden's body on the stretcher. The 2 firefighters nodded, put on some crime scene gloves, and walked over to Holden. They lifted his body and placed him on the stretcher. Tom zipped and rolled it into his van. He said his goodbyes and got back into his van and headed down the dirt road. Alex was finishing collecting the last few samples and stood up. Mia was holding the plastic evidence bag, looking down at it. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Alex put the swab that had the blood sample on it in the container. Alex looked up at me and said, "Mia, what's wrong?" "Alex, did you read the note?" she asked. "No, I didn't," he replied, walking towards her. She reached towards Alex and handed him the note. He grabbed it and read it.
Stop it there. They should read the book if they want the rest.
Yes.
Very, very cool. Thank you for reading that. So what are you working on next?
The next is going to be my new, after this, I'm working on that one right now, but I'm also working on another book on the other side that is a Western thriller that is going to follow my newest book.
Ooh. Can you give us a little hint, a character name, something, a little bit of spice?
The main characters are Clara and Jeremy. Clara is a state trooper turned rodeo queen, and Jeremy is an army veteran turned state trooper.
Oh, very, very cool.
It's a tale of two troopers.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we have John on this show. Very good. Just sneaks him right in there like that. So
The series.
Kevin,
Sorry.
No. Keep going.
The series is going to be called High Stakes, Harder Ground.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Strictly from my own curiosity, how far is Billings from Shelby?
It's about, I think, 2 to 4 hours,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Because I've been to Billings. That's as far into Montana as I've ever been.
Gotcha.
And I've got one character in a WIP I'm dealing with right now, who has a history in Montana and just mentioned, and they've recently fought a war and everything is in ruins, and he misses he misses Billings, but he mostly misses Gardner, even though it was an awful tourist trap. So.
Fair.
Okay.
The kind of backstory stuff gets interesting. Do you do a lot of research for what you're writing?
I do. I dive deep into everything that I write. Working in the high school, I have obtained or gotten my hands on, I guess you should say, books that they are throwing out that are forensics books that I keep in my bookshelf that's right behind me. And I use all of those to help me with my forensic side of everything. So everything is as accurate as it possibly can be.
I love that. That's wonderful. My absolute favorite thing about forensics is, I don't know if you know this or not, but when Sherlock Holmes was originally written, a lot of the police techniques he described were not in use by the police, and they are now because Sherlock Holmes was written.
I didn't know that.
A lot of his procedurals and a lot of things he talks about fingerprinting and everything else was not in common usage until he popularized it. And police department was like, oh, yeah, let's do that. So it's a lovely full circle that an author is now studying police procedures when the police at one point were actually studying an author's imaginings of police procedures.
That is fun.
That's got some beautiful symmetry to it.
It does.
It kind of fits because Law and Order is complete fiction. And most police procedurals are utterly made up, and it's fun to talk to actual detectives about these shows and just watch them roll their eyes and just mutter curses under their breath.
They don't have 17 people available full time to work on every single case as forensics?
If you knew what the statistics are on the backlog of these things, the hair on your head would stand up. It is.
Yes.
In some cases, it's decades long. It's terrifying.
My aunt was actually a police detective here in my hometown, and my brother is a state trooper here in my state.
So you've got your material right there.
Oh, yeah. I have my own personal, I guess, information databases.
Nice. I have a serology. I've got a book on criminal procedures from the 1980s, I think, and the section on serology is so ridiculously out of date that because they're doing all kinds of blood typing now that they couldn't even imagine in 1986. So
Right.
it's always fun when I work in a library, so whenever you go through the collection, the idea is to get rid of the older stuff with some dispatch, but sometimes you just don't know a really old book is so out of date until you pick it up and say, wow, this is not how it works anymore. So
Right.
Technology has moved so fast on so many levels that it really. I'm writing something in the 1980s right now, and I lived through 1980. I was already an adult and working and everything else, kids and keys, all that stuff. And I'm sitting there going, would they have used this phrase? What was on TV at 12 noon on a weekday? Because it's in the background of the scene. And it's very weird to research stuff that but you got to make sure you're not, time tripping stuff. It gets fun. I enjoy that part of it a lot, actually. So, Kevin, how many hundreds of covers do you do in a week?
A week? Basically, I do roughly 4 to 6 covers a day. And then that comes out to, make it easy math, 25 per week, 50 every 2 weeks, or, another 100 every month. And it keeps adding up and adding up over 15 years.
Yep.
And we're over 6,000 books at this point. I don't exactly know how many. Yeah, just like that one.
That's one of his. That's
that
one of his.
I've got my stuff on multiple screens right now. I like it.
One of his. Yeah. Poster behind Skylar. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. Actually, I like the story behind this one. I should tell it very quickly. So I designed this cover, and I showed it to Kevin, and Kevin was like, do you want some advice? I was like, yes, please. Pretty much every element on this cover I designed. Almost nothing is where I put it. Kevin went through, he's like, if you move this up a little, if you tilt, there's an 8 over there. He says, if you tilt the 8, so it's almost an infinity sign, it's almost an 8. And he calls his wife over. It's like, can I get your opinion real quick? And I got 5 more. And so I did and did not. It's Schrodinger's cover. I did not design this cover. And I keep looking at what I did, and I keep looking at what Kevin did. And one of the days I'm going to fully parse the difference and fully understand it, because I know his is better, but I can't point to exactly what makes it better yet. And that's my challenge for me. I've done cover design before, not on Kevin's scale. My favorite cover design story is the very first novel that I did. I designed my own cover, and it's photographic. I literally built pieces, laid them out on a table, organized them so it was the workbench of one of the characters, and got the right angle and took the picture and put it into a contest for covers for books. And the response I got back was, this is an incredibly professional cover. I would never read your book. I said, what? They said, stick 2 map pins in the map. And now I've got a question in my mind. Why the hell is New York and Hong Kong highlighted? Now I'll read your book. There's no question here. There's no factor that makes me go, I wonder what that's about. And when I look at Kevin's covers, I constantly get that, I kind of want to know why those things are together. I kind of want to know why that person is intentionally turned away so we can't see their face. I want to know
why the creepy person walking down the freeway. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing that I do understand about how Kevin excels is all of his covers ask a question. They invite you to have to look inside to find out the rest. And so I will absolutely give you that compliment, sir, because that part I know, but there's other nuances of what you do that I have not quite parsed yet. I want to.
A lot of it's just having done it for so long, I just have a feel for how things should look. And a lot of that has to do with spacing between letters. And, picture's a picture. You can find good pictures all over the place. The part that drives me nuts on a lot of other designers is their inability to handle text. It's like, it's not difficult, but it's like the amount of leading you put between things, whether you have shadow behind it, how it stands out and such like that just drives me crazy.
Yeah, I have exactly one typography joke, which is, do you know what kemming is? It's kerning where the R and the N are so close you think it's an M.
He's been waiting all week to use that one.
I've been waiting years to use that one. I've gotten to use it exactly one other time. I was at a family gathering, and one of my cousin's kids came by with his then girlfriend, and we said, "What do you do for a living?" And she got very shy, like she's gotten weird reactions to it. She says, "I teach typography." And so I told her my kemming joke and said, "You're amongst friends." I pointed to my sister and said, "She used to be involved with editing children's books." I pointed over there and said, "She writes parodies. I write these. My brother writes." Yes, you're in a safe space. But, so yes, it's been years. It's been years. So Kevin, what was your favorite cover? What was the one that was the most fun to do? I mean, other than every one of mine you've ever done, and everything
Well,
you've done
yes,
for
of course,
Skylar
those.
and for John's wife, Lara. Other than those, what was your favorite?
That's hard to say because it's like literally there are thousands of them, and it's hard to, after a year or two, you don't really think about them that much anymore. Because I'm working on another dozen that have to go out this week, and
Yeah.
it just keeps on moving along. Some of them, I like the Casey Nash series. I really love the look that came together for that. It's a series of Western books about Jubal Stone. He's U.S. Marshal, and they're very bold red and black, and it's a matter of silhouette, and it's not really a complicated thing, but it stands out really strongly, particularly when you drop it onto a little thumbnail on page full of books. And that's
Yep.
been very successful for Casey, and I've enjoyed making them.
Yeah, no, we as authors, and I don't know if you get to hear this enough. I know I've said it to you, but we appreciate what you do because you're how people figure out whether they're going to open the book and do the read inside on Amazon, or if they're going to, pick up the physical copy when we bring them to shows and things like that. The covers are so important.
I appreciate that, definitely. As my wife frequently says, a cover is there just to make the person turn the book over and read what the author wrote on the back.
There's times
That's
when
what
it's
sells
that.
the book.
And to be fair, sometimes what's written on the back is written there by Abigail or Jersey or any number of other people.
Indeed.
Raventail's got a really thick bench at this point. You've got a lot of quality people there that I enjoy working with. I know, Skylar, all your experiences with them have been terrible, right?
Horrible.
Well, you were reading the entire chapter there, Skylar. I was sitting there going through, okay, yeah, and we inserted a comma and a ring right there, and
Yes.
going through all the edits we had to do when we were writing up that chapter.
Yep.
It's fun when you get those things back. I've already confessed to this twice, but I'll confess to it a third time. I actually put the Atlantic Ocean in the wrong place in one story. In New York, which is where I live. I had moved part of the story from downstate to upstate and forgotten the part that meant there was like a lot of land between where it now is located and the Atlantic.
Yep.
Did catch it after the ebook went out, before the paper version went out. So we did fix it in time, but yeah, editing's important.
There's a lot of luck in publishing.
Cecil B. DeMille had a film that he did that he wanted to end. It was being shot in Paris, and he wanted the two lead characters going down the boat out into the ocean away from it. And it's like the producers came to him and said, like, well, that Paris isn't anywhere near the ocean. He's just like, nobody sitting here watching this knows that. Who cares? So, yeah. Along also with the line of, nobody knows what Paris looks like. Shoot it in Griffith Park.
Well, everything looks like Vancouver if you watch TV.
Well, that's true.
So much stuff is shot there. It is breathtaking the number of times you do that. Or I don't know if you've ever done like a backlot tour, and they'll point at a house and say, that house is the Brady Bunch house, and it's the house in the background in the opening shot from this movie, and it's the house they did the interior for in this movie, and it's the house they used for the side of for this movie. And by the way, they painted a different color for this movie, but they forgot to paint one of the shutters so you can actually see the color from the Brady Bunch. And you're
My wife frequently does that too. We sit there, we watch TV, and it's just like they're shooting on the WB lot again, aren't they? Yes, yes, they are.
Yeah. But that is the challenge with graphic reuse, and I know you go through that with covers also. That when you take certain images, it's like, I want to use this image, and I suspect you have this massive back catalog that's mostly complete of, did I use this image? I really liked it. Does that mean I really liked it 6 months ago and used it?
I try very hard to not use anything that I've used within the last year.
Yep.
Occasionally things slide through because it was like it just really fit the title really well or such like that, but I try and give some space before I ever reuse an image on anything else, and I always want to make it a little bit different than the last time I used it, if I used it before. But yeah, it does happen because, 6,000 books, how many times can you put a cowboy on a horse?
Yeah.
Well, occasionally have a cowboy falling off the horse or slumping over because he's just.
I've done a couple of those.
Okay, and now the real question is, since you've told us about how about what you like about covers, now you get to tell us about the worst cover you have ever seen in your life. Not necessarily yours.
Wasn't one of mine.
Just something that made you smack your head and say, "Oh, there's me." How did this even get on a page?
Oh, there's lots of that. The bigger thing that hits for me is when authors ask for things that are physically impossible to do. Like, okay, this was a classic one. They wanted a Western done, and they wanted the lead person riding into town as they're coming there, and then they needed to have a sniper up in the hill 400 meters away with a Sharps rifle hiding behind a bush shooting at him, and they wanted to see the sniper at the same time and the guy's reaction on the horse to being shot at from him. And it's like, this is like less than 1/10 of an inch of a speck on this cover. There's no way anyone's ever going to see this. But trying to convince people of that,
it's a 10-book series.
I understand what the impulse is.
And the guy on book 1, and then you got some room.
Yeah. Have him shoot over the course of 10 books would be outstanding.
That's a Joe Conrath idea.
That would be good.
I can see him doing that.
Give me enough series. I've done that before, where I've lined up a lot of books in a series and had a continuous image on the back, but we haven't done that in a long time. It would be fun
Honestly,
to do.
I understand what the impulse with the sniper thing is, because that is something you can do in a movie in about 3 seconds with a correct pullback. And the thing is, that's what someone is thinking of, but that's not going to work in a printed media.
You
that's
can't
big.
put that on a cover. Yeah, a lot of people think in terms of either they know their entire story and they want the image to tell their entire story with nuance, or they're thinking of it as a film, and it's like, neither one of those can I particularly do in a single image. It's always best to just pick a singular image as it goes that way, something that's iconic, something that'll tell what the entire story is. Like Skylar's there has got the guy on the freeway. It just stands out. It says something about the book, says something about the mood, and a little bit about what's going to happen in it, but not enough to really like say, oh yeah, well, this is like the story of the police trooper, and she's got like a trouble with her family, and she's, we're not trying to tell all of that. We have this mysterious thing on the freeway that people are going, that's interesting, let's sell that. So it's a matter of keeping it focused, and a lot of times working with authors that can get a little bit weird because they don't think in terms of, well, one would say sales, but two, just trying to make a mood to represent the overall book as opposed to trying to represent their entire story.
So I should tell the story about the very first Western cover you did for me. So it's Halloween, and I've gotten 2 versions of the book cover, one from Nick and one from Todd Barcelo, the editor. He had a friend mock up a cover because he didn't like the first one, and I'm talking by text to Nick, and I'm like, I'm not really happy with this. And he's like, and this was literally my first interactions with him for an actual book that's going to get finalized. We'd been talking when he hired me and everything. And he says, "What don't you like?" I said, "There's no action in either of these covers." He said, "You're right. So let's get Kevin in on this, and you tell me what you want him to do." And so I'm at my friend's house playing board games. So I take a car off of the board game, and I take two Sour Patch Kids, and I staged the cover with that, and sent that to Nick and sent that to Kevin and said, "This one over here is under the catawampus. The car is the catawampus. This one over here is our main character. He's wearing this kind." And somehow he managed to make that into a brilliant cover.
Because gummy bears make great covers.
It was the funniest moment because literally we're trying to get the book out, so I don't have time to wait until I'm going home. So I stopped the game just long enough to stage the two Sour Patch Kids and the car, and send that to Nick and Kevin. And Kevin did his magic. And it does not look at all like what I staged, but all the positioning is there. He got the theater notes for it. It was wonderful.
That's the mark.
That was my introduction to you, Kevin. That's
yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah,
I remember the picture. Somewhere it's in my files.
Yeah. If I ever get enough books that we do a retrospective, maybe that should be the cover.
We can make that the cover. Yes, most definitely.
With like a before and after, we'll line up the actual cover with the plan, the mock-up.
Oh no, you just get the original.
So, Skylar, if you could do any kind of cover for a story, for any of the ones you're working on, for any works in progress, what would be your dream cover, the one that kind of haunts you, that you really like to see, the visual that you're looking for?
So with me doing Westerns, I grew up in the Western community my entire life. From the time I could walk, I was on a horse. So I'm very particular, and I'm sure Kevin got fed up with me trying to nitpick everything with my newest cover. So I guess with that one is just I don't know, get it, being able to just take what's in my brain from everything that I know about the Western community and everything, and just putting it on a cover.
Have you tried staging it with Sour Patch Kids and cars?
I may need to try that. I may need to try it.
Very, very cool. So, Skylar, you told us a little bit about what you've got coming up next. And Kevin, we kind of talked about what you've got coming up next, which is an avalanche of more of the same.
Yeah, a lot of that. I never know what's going to happen on any individual day. So it's like, wake up. I have a list of things that I'm currently working on. And it's usually my goal to make it so I don't have a list at the end of the day, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But every day is different. Every day is new.
Yeah. So you're doing stuff for the Westerns and for the horror. I know there's other brands. Are you doing stuff for the romance or anything else?
I've done some of those. That is probably my weakest one, because I totally more than admit I do not know what a good-looking guy looks like. At least I'm not very proficient at picking them out. So I usually defer to my wife for all of those. But the romances are by far my most difficult ones to work on, just because I don't have a lot of experience doing that type. We do a lot of military story ones, adventure stories, different things like that. No problem. I can do those with my eyes closed. But yeah, romance is harder. And plus I don't know, I have a different aesthetic, I think, than a lot of people.
So, Skylar, if there was a genre you haven't hit yet that you wanted to hit, what would it be?
Horror, for sure.
Ooh. But isn't Exorcist kind of horror?
So kind of. I don't want to spoil too much of anything.
Oh, no, don't. Yeah.
He's not necessarily horror. He thinks he is an or he's a priest that thinks he is exorcising demons. So that's what he calls himself.
Yeah, the unreliable, deluded narrator can be incredible fun.
Yes.
That is big fun stuff. I enjoy that a lot, especially when the readers have to take a while to figure it out. And they're like, oh, right, he is not actually fully functioning in reality. that can be a wonderful midpoint reveal, or even 2 or 3 chapters in. Those kind of things are a lot of fun. So if you're going to do horror, all capital letters, what kind of horror would you do? Would it be psychological horror, body horror, paranormal? There's so many kinds.
There is. I like the supernatural aspect of a lot of things. I also like the psychological thrillers, all the mental illnesses and everything of what kind of makes a serial killer. That's kind of what I do in my books, is the psychological challenges that a lot of serial killers deal with. So for more of my horrors would probably be supernatural.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I'm working on a serial killer piece for another publisher. I'm working on a serial killer piece right now. But yeah, that can be a huge amount of fun, and I'm actually very interested to read what you're doing, because I've been starting to dive into that area. So it's very specifically the kind of stuff that I've been looking at, and I'm very curious and interested in seeing what your perspective is on all that. And I'm gonna go look at the book and find out.
Well, let me know what you think.
Oh, absolutely. But I will warn you, I have a little bit of a TBR pile going. I don't know how much of this you can see, but I've got a little bit of a TBR pile going. Went to StokerCon, ended up with stuff. Went to Lich, ended up with stuff. Went to CradleCon, I went to no conventions last year. This year, I think I've been at 7 or 8, and did my favorite one 2 weeks ago, which is Otakon, where I go to an anime convention and I teach creative writing. And
that's cool.
People in costumes, a good room. I think I actually mentioned this in the last podcast. So I'll stop telling that story. So like Kevin, I don't want to keep repeating stuff I've already done, but he's better at that. Hey guys, so we've gotten back our MC from the kidnapper. I'm sorry, our MC is back from vacation. So I'm going to ask you guys to help me holler for Danny so we can get this going. Oh, Danny!
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 And that's our show. If you are horror adjacent in books, comics, film, streaming, and want to be on the Horror Words podcast, email drownedrat@horrorwords.com. Good night.